Okay, today we are going to study the ESL English as a Second Language supplemental exam. We're going to be looking at the acronyms and some of the glossary that's on the test. So that's for the TExES ESL Supplemental 154 exam. So here we go. We're going to start with some acronyms. ARD, ARD, stands for Admission, Review, and Dismissal. BICS, or BICS, stands for Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills. Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills. CALA, or CALLA, stands for Cognitive Academic Language Learning Approach. Cognitive Academic Language Learning Approach. CALP, CALP, stands for Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. That's Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. CBLI stands for Content-Based Language Instruction. Content-Based Language Instruction. DLI stands for Dual Language Immersion. Dual Language Immersion. EB stands for Emergent Bilingual. Emergent Bilingual. EL stands for English Learner. We'll hear that a lot in this book. English Learner. ELPS, or ELPS, stands for English Language Proficiency Standards. English Language Proficiency Standards. EP stands for English Proficient. ESL stands for English as a Second Language. ESOL stands for English for Speakers of Other Languages. ESSA, or ESSA, or ESA, stands for Every Student Succeeds Act. GLAD, GLAD, stands for Guided Language Acquisition Design. Guided Language Acquisition Design. HLS stands for Home Language Survey. HLS, again, important. That stands for Home Language Survey. IEP stands for Individualized Education Program. We've heard of that before. L1, you're going to hear this term a lot too. L1 is the primary or native language, their first language, their native language. L2 is the second language. LAS links, or LAS links, stands for Language Assessment System. LEA, or LEA, stands for Local Educational Agencies. Local Educational Agencies. LPAC stands for Language Proficiency Assessment Committee. LPAC is Language Proficiency Assessment Committee. OCR stands for Office of Civil Rights. OLPT stands for Oral Language Proficiency Test. OLPT, Oral Language Proficiency Test. PEIMS is PEIMS. That's Public Education Information Management System. PLDS is Proficiency Level Descriptors. Proficiency Level Descriptors. QTEL, or QTEL, is Quality Teaching for English Learners. SDAIE, SDAE, stands for Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English. Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English. SE is Student Expectation. SIOP, or SIOP, stands for Sheltered Instruction, Observational Protocol. Sheltered Instruction, Observational Protocol. SPED, SPED, stands for Special Education. STAR, STAAR, stands for State of Texas Assessment of Academic Readiness. TAC, or TAC, stands for Texas Administrative Code. TEA stands for Texas Education Agency. TEC stands for Texas Education Code. TELPAS, TLEPAS, stands for Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System. We'll see that in this book too. Okay, so that's the acronyms. So to master those, you can just replay that. Now I'm using the TExES ESL Supplemental Guide. It's the most recent one. It's published by REA. And I'm going to go over some of the glossary. So here we go. Accommodations. Adjustments made to allow learners equitable access to learning situations. Accommodations can be linguistic accommodations made in classroom instruction to support EL students' full participation in learning activities. Accommodations also refer to adjustments and supports in testing and in other output situations to increase accessibility for learners with special needs. Examples could be repeating, speaking louder, speaking slower, so many different accommodations to help the students understand. Advocacy. Advocacy means serving as a supporter of an EL student and family by knowing resources, programs, and options available to students and their families. So as a teacher or someone in education, you would be like an advocate. So advocacy is supporting those, the students and the family of an EL, an English learner. An assessment. An assessment is a measurement of student achievement, like a test. Assessment should include means for reporting student strengths and weaknesses and performance of tasks related to specific learning outcomes. Assessment should reflect a mindset of continual improvement. In other words, assessments should provide opportunity to improve performance. Lessons should be initially be constructed with awareness of how learning outcomes will be assessed. So that just means we can break things down and scaffold and chunk with material that we're going to test. Tell that to students, we're going to learn these things. And then we're going to test those things that we taught them. And then if there's things we need to learn again or go over again, we can do that. So an assessment just gauges learning. An assessment can be a short assessment, written assessment, oral assessment, so many different types of tests and assessments. Authentic assessment promotes the mindset that assessment is ongoing, success-driven, and student-centered. Authentic assessment often occurs on the spot during lessons when teachers realize that an instructional strategy needs to be tweaked to promote student learning. Authentic assessment reflects well-constructed assessments and assessment instruments that allow learners to showcase their achievement and that allow teachers to offer fair, meaningful commentary on learner accomplishments. So that's just like you're teaching a lesson and you can do an assessment. You could just do a little test um, while they're working, like practical, um, just to kind of gauge, are they understanding this lesson? Are they understanding this concept here? And you're just gauging, you're always looking for that feedback. It's an authentic assessment. It's not a formalized assessment like the STAR test. It's just part of you teaching and engaging with them to see how they are. Basic interpersonal communicative skills, BICS, basic interpersonal communicative skills. Okay. That means one strand of a dichotomy that describes types of L2 acquisition, basic interpersonal communicative skills, and cognitive academic language proficiency. Jim Cummins proposed that basic interpersonal communicative skills, which EL English learners students need in order to participate in meaningful speaking and listening interactions with L2 speakers, develop much more quickly than higher level cognitive skills. So that basic interpersonal communicative skills. So you think of like how a child learns language. You start with the basics. You start with the simple, right? Visual, just those building blocks. Copying, reinforcing, repeating, and you're using their language if you can. You're using physical confirmations as well. So those basic natural skills that we use. Behavioral outcomes. Instruction should be guided by learning outcomes that reflect what the learner should know and be able to do at the end of the instructional period. Behavioral outcomes are measurable. So a behavioral outcome could be, okay, at the end of this unit, you're going to be able to describe the consequences of Germany's actions on the greater European society, so it's just at the end of this lesson, you should be able to know this or demonstrate this. If it's like mathematics, you're going to be able to perform this equation or subtraction, addition, whatever it is. It's just your goal of a unit. Behavioral outcomes. Bilingual programs. Bilingual programs are one of the two broad language programs implemented in Texas public schools to develop the language and academic proficiency of students who have been designated LEP on the basis of their performance on state-approved English proficiency exam. In bilingual programs, instruction is delivered in English and another language. In Texas, there are 4 types of bilingual programs. 2 transitional programs, early exit and late exit, and 2 dual language programs, immersion one-way and immersion two-way. So bilingual programs. Basically, not every language learner or English learner is going to be at the same level. Some of them may not know any English. Some may be proficient in some. And so they're going to need different levels of instruction and accommodation, engaging, in order to help them, access that curriculum. Bloom's taxonomy, a basic system of hierarchical cognitive tasks that teachers use to construct developmentally appropriate instruction, activities, and assessments. Bloom's taxonomy includes 6 levels of cognitive tasks, which include memorizing, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. That was remembering. I think I said memorizing, which is the same. Understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. The verbs in learning objectives should match the cognitive task reflected by the objective in order to ensure coherence in instruction, activities, and assessments related to the objective. So it's just the hierarchy. The skills get harder. The cognitive tasks get harder as children go through the developmental process. Code switching. Code switching. A deliberate integration of a structure from L1 into an L2 structure. Remember, L1 is the native language, L2 is the secondary language. A deliberate integration of a structure from L1 to L2. Real code switching is intentional, either to fill a gap in current L2 proficiency, in which case it is more of a translation or transfer strategy, or to enact a rhetorical, political, or social motive. So code switching, that's from L1 to L2 in structure. Cognitive processes. In the context of the ESL's exams competencies, cognitive processes refer to the deliberate or unconscious thinking processes that modulate an EL, English learners, learning students' learning and abilities. SLA, to look up what that means. SLA requires that the learners are aware of what they can do cognitively to enhance their L2 learning. That's metacognition. If you're thinking about how you're thinking and what you're thinking, that's metacognitive. So that's good. Cognitive processes. Cognitive academic language proficiency. Remember that acronym? CALP, CALP. Cognitive academic language proficiency. One strand of a dichotomy that describes types of L2 acquisition. Basic interpersonal communicative skills and cognitive academic language proficiency. Jim Cummins proposed the basic interpersonal communicative skills which EL students need in order to participate in meaningful speaking and listening interactions with L2 speakers. Develop much more quickly than higher level cognitive skills. CALP, or Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency, remember, keyword is academic, right? Academic language proficiency. CALP is what is taught in school in context areas, academic context areas, and it takes much longer to develop than BICS. So this is more advanced than those basic. So it takes much more longer to develop than BICS because it's so much more cognitively demanding. So these are greater skills and competencies. This is to a higher level. Cummins warned that looking only at surface proficiency in L2 could result in early exit from language programs before learners are truly adept in cognitive language skills. So we want to make sure the student not only has the basic interpersonal communication skills, learning that language, but that they're able to do that more complex cognitive and academic proficiency too, not just the basics, but also that academic thinking, processing, and language. Collaborative learning, involving learners in activities that call for cooperation and interaction. Most group activities are collaborative because learners are usually given a task that must be performed by working together toward the assigned outcome. So collaboration, working with others to learn. Communication with families. It is the teacher's responsibility to initiate and maintain fruitful communication with families. Communication sent to families should express openness to involve the families in the learner's school world. Communication with families from different cultures should take into account possibilities for miscommunication and should factor in cultural norms that impact how families interact with schools. In ESL settings, teachers may need to seek campus assistance in translating communication with the learner's family primary language. It's true. Communication, a vital part of L2 learning. Communication is the generic term used to refer to social, pragmatic, and functional uses of language. Could be visual, written, body language, any way to interact with meaning. Okay. Communicative competence. The ability to interact meaningfully in social interactions using basic language skills, nonverbals, and appropriate registers. Communicative competence is acquired relatively quickly. Researchers estimate that most EL students can learn basic communicative skills in about 2 years, whereas academic skills take up to 7 years or longer. Wow. Research also believe that EL students rely on fundamental communicative skills that transfer across languages, which explains the rapid development of communicative competence. Community resources. A variety of community resources can help learners meet their academic and personal goals. Teachers can inform both learners and their families of community organizations and services that target special needs. A teacher's awareness of learner needs contributes to knowing what community services and organizations might best suit the learner or their family. In the ESL settings, teachers can help learners and families acculturate by being aware of resources that can provide academic, personal, financial, political, and health services. Competencies. The English as a second language framework is presented in 10 competencies in 3 domains. So there's 10 competencies in 3 domains. The competencies are statements of general knowledge that being teachers should have in pivotal areas of ESL teaching content, with each competency subdivided into descriptive statements that offer details on expected ESL certification knowledge and skills. So remember, there's 10 competencies. Comprehensible input, a term coined by Stephen D. Krashen to describe the catalyst for successful SLA. Still don't know what SLA. You know what? Let me look up SLA. I'm not knowing. So SLA. It's like super easy. What does that mean? SLA. Second language acquisition. I knew it was going to be easy. Okay, second language acquisition. So let's read that again. Comprehensive input, a term coined by Stephen D. Krashen to describe the catalyst for successful SLA, which is second language acquisition. Krashen explained that individuals learn L1, their native language, via ongoing meaningful content-related input. And while L1 learning processes cannot be replicated in SLA, Krashen contended that L2 learning could be enhanced by ensuring that learners receive constant comprehensible input in authentic communicative and cognitive interactions. That means they understand what's happening. Some people used to think that just have them around people that speak another language, they'll learn. It's better if it's structured, because, I mean, think about it. You just listen to another foreign language, you have no idea. But when you couple that with visuals, with pointing, with movement, body language, facial expressions, all of those things, then they start to understand. And that basic understanding is that comprehensible input. They're understanding what you're saying. So in Spanish, this no is no. In, let's see, Hebrew, No is low, low. So you could use their language, English, and you'd be tying it together so that they could comprehend. That's that comprehensible input, is they're understanding what you're saying. Otherwise, they're not going to get it. Comprehension. Comprehension, a term associated with reading. Comprehension refers to a holistic instruction of meaning when we read a text. Readers may use cognitive, linguistic, and reading skills to shape meaning as they read, and then holistically at the end of a reading segment. So we all do that when we read, right? Computer administrated tests. That's CATS. Computer administrated tests. All TExES exams are administered online in a designated testing center. Logistical information about registering for any TExES, TExES exam is available through a link to the current exam vendor provided with TExES educators on the TEA website. That's what we'll be doing. Content area teaching. In teaching ESL, we often create a dichotomy between supporting English proficiency and teaching discipline-relevant subject matter. So two different things, teaching language, teaching subjects, right? Content area teaching refers to teaching math, science, social sciences, literature, reading, subject areas that call for specialized knowledge, but that require strong proficiency in English to support learning in those subjects. Realistically, ESL teachers teach both proficiency and subject matter content. Content-based instruction. Very much the same. Content-based instruction, a type of ESL program in which EL students are placed in a content area class, science, social studies, literature, math, reading, taught by an ESL certified teacher. Instruction is in English, but with appropriate accommodations to address the linguistic and cognitive needs of the EL student. So cognitive-based instruction. So that's an ESL teacher teaching subjects, specific content. Conventions. Expectations that influence written and spoken output. These aren't rules in the sense that the word order in sentence is a rule of grammar. Instead, conventions are guidelines about what to make choices. For example, the choice to use ER versus more in a comparative structure, or EST versus most in creating a superlative. Conventions are also relevant in major language decisions, like adding new words to the language through increased usage of invented forms, or through the need of a word to represent a new phenomenon. That's conventions. Cross-curricular ELPS. Cross-curricular ELPS or ELPS. Student expectations for content area performance. Cross-curricular ELPS or ELPS focus on cognitive and practical language skills that EL students need in order to learn disciplinary content while also learning English. ELPS stipulates that teachers must provide linguistic accommodations to support content area learning. We have ELPS right up here on the screen. English Language Proficiency Standards. Descriptive statements. Each of the 10 ESL competencies is broken down into specific knowledge that the beginning teacher should demonstrate in the broad area of the competency. Descriptive statements begin with the active verbs: knows, analyzes, recognizes, understands, uses, accepts, plans, enhances, stimulates, teaches, provides, presents, creates, works, organizes, applies, engages, communicates, practices, employs, develops, responds, or conducts. Developmental characteristics. The cognitive, social, affective, and physical characteristics that learners exhibit at various stages in their educational process. Developmental characteristics significantly impact learner readiness to engage in the cognitive demands of a content area work. But they also determine how a learner participates in the class community. Instructional choices should reflect the learner's developmental characteristics. Usually, developmental characteristics are broadly labeled using chronological categories like early childhood, elementary, middle school, adolescent. However, learner characteristics are not homogeneous. Teachers need to make individual, differentiated instruction choices in order to meet all learner needs. Developmentally appropriate. Knowing learners' characteristics enables teachers to conduct lessons and activities that reflect learners' cognitive, social, affective, and, if appropriate, physical readiness to attempt the tasks. Developmentally appropriate tasks should enable learners to progress in their learning by attempting and completing tasks that reflect what they are able to do on their own and what they can do with appropriate assistance and mentorship from the teacher. Learning tasks should challenge the learner in a way that creates learner satisfactory, but not frustration. Tasks that are constantly too simple for learners may be aimed at developmental levels that are low for the learner's current level and may consequently lead to learner disinterest. Good point. That can lead to behavior problems too. Differentiated instruction. Instruction that takes into account individual learners' needs. It may be impractical to create designated lessons for individual students, but differentiation suggests that teachers can tailor general instruction to address specific learners' needs so as to pull the learner into the holistic learning experience. Everybody learns differently. I'm an auditory learner. That's why I'm recording this, so I can listen to it again. Some people are very visual, and so they need to see it. Some people need to move. They just need to move. They need to take notes. They're kinesthetic. Everybody's different. Discourse. The distinct linguistic and cognitive expectations for communication in a specific setting. Discourse is bound and defined by the parameters of the setting in which the output and the input are produced. Specific discourses are associated with distinct social groups, academic groups, political groups, or any group in which the members share ways of thinking, acting, and believing. Discourse. Discussion. Discussions can be the whole group discussions involving the entire class or small group discussions. In ESL settings, it is vital that teachers modulate whole group discussions so that all learners participate, even if they do not contribute comments or questions. Teachers need to factor in appropriate wait time to allow EL students time to construct responses. Small group discussions can be facilitated if the teacher assigns specific tasks and sets time limits for discussion. Whether whole class or small group, discussions should aim for inclusivity and equitable participation of all learners. That was discussion. Diversity. The differences that learners bring to a class community. Differences may be attitudinal, ethnic, national, gender, based, disability-based, linguistic, physical, social, economic, and any number of distinctions. Differences should be used to create a cohesive class community of distinct learners with individual as well as holistic needs. Let's sip this coffee. Okay, domains. Remember, there are 3 domains in this book. The content of the Texas ESL 154 supplemental exam is presented in 3 domains, which represent broad areas of knowledge. Domain 1, the teacher's knowledge of linguistics. Domain 2, the teacher's ability to construct effective ESL instruction. Domain 3, the teacher's ability to contextualize ESL with historical frameworks and social aspects of learning instruction. Each domain is further divided into competencies and descriptive statements. So that was 3 domains. Dual language programs, a type of bilingual educational program in which instruction is delivered in L1 and L2 with the goal of biliteracy, yes, for all learners. Two-way dual language programs include native speakers of English as well as language learners. One-way dual language programs are focused on EL students. Okay, we have the acronym ESEA. Thank you. We have it up here. ESEA. Are you up here? No? I guess not. Okay. That stands for Elementary and Secondary Education Act. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act passed in 1965. This act was aimed at general improvements in the educational circumstances of young learners in the U.S. Although the 1965 Act was intended to achieve equity for low-income students in subsequent revisions and reauthorizations, ESEA has been instrumental in implementing language programs to support the needs of students from whom English is not their first language. Okay. ESL, English as a Second Language. ESL programs are one of 2 broad language programs implemented in Texas public schools to develop the language and academic proficiency of students who have been designated LEP, language, LEP. My brain's like soup. There's a lot of content, so. LEP, in case you're like me, you can't remember anything. LEP, language. Is it up here? It's probably like right up here. It's not. Where's the song? Oh, language. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? So, okay, ESL programs, one of 2 broad language programs implemented in Texas public schools to develop the language and academic proficiency of students who have designated LEP on the basis of their performance on the state-approved English proficiency exam. LEP. Language efficiency program, probably. In ESL programs, instruction is delivered in English, although teachers are expected to make linguistic accommodations to support learners to learn English while they're learning content material in English. English learners, ELs, students whose home language is a language other than English, and are working toward proficiency in English. EL students are designated EL through testing and are placed in ESL or bilingual education programs on the basis of their proficiency in English as determined by that state-approved test. ELPS, English Language Proficiency Standards, a section of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, TEKS, curriculum that includes categories of proficiency for EL students, which are beginning, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high in listening and speaking, and in reading and writing. ESL and bilingual education teachers are responsible for knowing the characteristics of each proficiency level to ensure that their instruction is appropriately adjusted to meet EL students' academic and linguistic needs. Every Student Succeeds Act. I think that is up here. ESA? ESA? ESA. Every Student Succeeds Act. The 2015 reauthorization of the 1965 elementary and secondary education, which focused on improving the quality of elementary and secondary education by emphasizing equity and access. ESSA is the updating of No Child Left Behind, which was categorized by the average yearly progress requirements. ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, focuses on providing appropriate language supports to enable EL students to reach high levels of academic achievement in the same academic subjects and opportunities as native speakers. Family involvement. ESL teachers must engage families in striving for success of EL students in school. Family involvement is fostered through communication, through ongoing contact with parents, and through invitations of parental participation. A teacher can serve as an intermediary or a liaison in official communication from LPAC, especially when parents may not understand the testing data or language program states information means specifically for their children. Teachers can also direct parents to state and national websites aimed at helping parents of English learners participate in their child's education. Feedback. Comments a teacher offers in response to an in-progress or completed learning task. Feedback should clearly identify what the learner has done effectively and what the learner needs to do to improve. Feedback can be immediate in class, as during a class activity, or deferred, as in the formal commentary or scoring of a learning product. Feedback is a component of assessment. First language acquisition. The processes of becoming fluent in one's native or first language. First languages are acquired intuitively, naturally, and quickly without instruction. First language acquisition processes cannot be realistically replicated in the SLA, second language acquisition, SLA. But the comprehensible meaningful input hypothesis is an attempt to establish that if first language acquisition occurs through meaningful communicative interactions, then we should be able to carry out learning that learning platform in the ESL instruction. Absolutely. Fishbowl, a prolific classroom strategy for demonstrating learning activities. Fishbowl relies on the metaphor of a fish in a bowl that can be viewed swimming around and doing fish activities. In the classroom, students volunteer to be the fish by demonstrating an activity while everyone else watches, comments, and asks questions. The fishbowl is considered a robust strategy for fostering learning engagement. That's good. sounds fun. Formative feedback, responding to student learning products in a way that identifies strengths and offers guidance for specific improvement. Formative assessment should include opportunities to revise based on the comments and needs for improvement. Formative feedback is offered while learning a task and it's still in progress, and students have the opportunity to revive what they have done to demonstrate higher levels of achievement. It's like a quiz. It's like you're gauging throughout the steps of say your goal in a unit is, you're going to be able to do this equation at the end, but you do formative assessments and give formative feedback naturally throughout that process to make sure they're on track. Grouping strategies. Collaborative activities call for decisions about grouping. The teacher's choices for arranging students into groups significantly impact the classroom environment. A teacher can promote diversity by creating random groups. Base groups, which are more or less permanent, however, contribute to learners' feelings of responsibility to classmates. Self-selected groups allow learners to assemble themselves into comfortable groups, social groups. The grouping strategy should reflect the learning objectives for the specific collaborative learning task. Amen. Okay, let's see how far we got today. That's about an hour. I think we didn't really even do like quite halfway, so. Okay, maybe halfway. So we'll call this part 1, and then we'll do part 2. So there will be two parts to the acronyms and the glossary. And then after that, we will start the domains. We'll start domain 1, and as they go through the competencies as well. So that's good for today, and I'll see you next time.